What I've been thinking about recently is how prevalent right-wing politics is on YouTube. Despite the right complaining about social media censorship, the likes of Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro blow any lefty out of the water. In this video I want to explore what the right does so well in terms of messaging and what we can learn from it. Today we'll be exploring the rhetoric of Sargon of Akkad, who I'm actually weirdly fond of in a twisted way. Don't get me wrong, his viewpoints are incredibly toxic, but I find myself watching a lot of his videos because they're great to analyse as he consistently hits all the right-wing talking points with amazing efficiency. I recently stumbled across this video and couldn't help but cover it since it's a great example of his commentary. I will warn you though, in this video Sargon is joined by a man who looks like he would stab you over quail's eggs.
Tyranny breeds tyranny. Slavery breeds. What happens is the reason why,
as well,
and they do it to the people below them because they want to do it to us, right? Because they are slaved over by the people above them. So that breeds the resentment you're talking about. They become obsessed with the master, and what that does is makes this happens with children that are tyrannized by abusive parents, right? They do it to their younger brothers, they do it to their children, and that's what happens on a grand scale, is that they want to do it to us. They want to, and so they are the only thing that keeps them from tearing down below these people that are tyrants is that their secret desire to do it to the people that are not under their boot. Is to do it to us, the people that they consider below them, that are deplorables, that are despicable.
The wannabe baron explains a classic talking point, whereby the left are so downtrodden by the system that when they get even a sniff of power, they'll turn it around and persecute the right. It's complete nonsense, of course, and is likely to be a projection, but it's highly effective, since like many other right-wing narratives, it's incredibly ambitious by painting the left as a shadowy cabal that taints anything that it touches and will immediately throw anyone who opposes them in the gulag. The left never takes this approach with the right though. The first reason being that the right do a good enough job making themselves look immoral and authoritarian, so the left don't have to paint a picture from their imagination. And secondly, the left care a hell of a lot more about facts, therefore can't collectively organise around a false narrative. I'd really like this guy to source the things he says in this video with sociological evidence, but of course he's not able to. He also massively shoots himself in the foot with his argument, comparing the experience of the left to the abuse of a child, so therefore implying that there has been some sort of oppression. Those are his words, not mine. The overall goal of this narrative comes from an age-old tactic of painting the left as being weak and easy to crush, as well as a potentially world-ending force, which overall makes for really effective rhetoric. I also wanted to briefly touch on what's behind this guy. Obviously it's a green screen, but I'm so confused as to why he picked this image, since it makes him look completely disconnected from reality. But I guess that's coming with the territory in terms of his ideology.
The look at the position that the sort of Democrat voting millennial is in, right? He is on the same side as the Democratic Party, which he hates, rightly so, for screwing over Bernie, for trying to steal this election, and for just being what I would describe as generally immoral. He has to work at a corporation, an international mega corporation like Starbucks, Amazon, or whatever, for a billionaire boss that he despises and would gladly eat raw. But he can do nothing about his situation, and he continues to vote for the very same fucking people who did this to him. Like, it's unreal. Like, any millennial would be like, oh yeah, I'm a socialist and I vote for the Democrats. Well done. You vote for the corporate hegemony, you fucking idiots.
This is probably the most effective section of rhetoric in this video. Sargon uses a technique that is similar to that of psychics, called cold reading. Psychics will ask a group whether they lost a relative called Henry, for example, and if that doesn't work, they'll resort to asking for a name beginning with H. The idea is to be as vague as possible, so that the likelihood of what they're saying being relevant to an individual is increased. In the case of psychics, it's to trick people into thinking they're talking to a dead relative, and in the case of Sargon, it's to resonate with the audience before contorting his argument to be in line with his agenda. Sargon talks about Democrat-hating millennials, which is probably everyone watching the video, irrespective of whether they're on the right or the left. He then mentions low-wage jobs and hating corporations, which most people can relate to, and then turns around and questions why people still vote for the Democrats, which is a wink and a nudge for people to vote for Trump by painting him as a populist, which is pretty laughable. Again, it's highly effective since his rhetoric is relatable and makes the audience think they're the ones being talked to, or can picture the group that's being bemoaned. Also, there's a grain of truth, since the Democrats are corrupt corporatists. The insidious thing is that the Republicans do all the same things that the Democrats do, plus further deregulation, corruption, and social regressivism.
You know, Yeah, exactly. You want just the very worst thing. And you are trapped in a mindset where you can't even countenance the idea of being your own man. You know, move to Georgia, like buy a plot of land if you can afford it. Work as a farmhand, whatever it is, right? You might find yourself
No, because you
actually
fucking
finding
hate those
freedom.
people. That's why you don't. Because
Yeah,
you fucking despise them. Because you think you're an
exactly.
elite. You think you're cosmopolitan,
Exactly.
and what you really are
As a
is
fucking serf.
yes.
You're not elite at all. You're not elite of anything. You work in fucking Starbucks.
They made you
Like,
think you were elite. The people that own you.
yes.
Their propaganda made you think
Yes.
you knew things because you read the New York Times and you read the New Yorker, and they made you feel like you're smart. But what that stuff is simply the smart man's paper for the idiots. It looks
Yeah.
like it is. That's all it is.
Firstly, a nice jab by calling the left intolerant, incredibly ironic, and then yet another tactic of the right, to bemoan the media. This poisons the well, making people confused and unsure about everything. This is why the term alternative facts was coined under Trump. When this is the case, people don't believe in facts and statistics anymore, and follow whatever resonates with them on a base level. The right tend to be highly effective in this situation, because they create a clear message surrounding national unity, and therefore preying on people's tribalistic nature. But of course, what they provide is baseless and superficial. The right offers people an identity that is not provided by the left, since leftist positions are more nuanced, and it's difficult to come to the exact same conclusions, since there's more free thought. This is a large reason why there's so much energy around leaders such as Trump, because people felt like they were on a team. It didn't matter that the team was hateful and destructive. People just wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves.
It's not even that. It's a very sophisticated way of keeping you on the plantation, idiots. You know, don't you understand that you like I the way you have your life is a consequence of the things you have chosen and the mindset that you have. And the mindset that you have is I will submit. And I love the fact that that's not the mindset of Trump.
At the end, Sargon adds in the democratic plantation slur, which has been used regularly by the likes of Candace Owens, and has been shown to be effective at convincing African Americans that the Democrats don't have their best interest at heart, and are only using them for their vote. The frustrating thing is that there's a grain of truth to this. The Democrats are pretty bad. There's no doubt that the black population would be worse off under Trump. Sargon then trails off by talking about submitting or something. It doesn't really make much sense, but it sounds good to someone who's not really listening. My favourite part of the video is how he pauses before he invokes Trump. He might just be looking at his notes, but I like to think he momentarily beat back his remaining ounce of humanity so that he could carry on with his grift. As you can see from this video, the right is a lot more disciplined in its rhetoric than the left. I'm not suggesting the left adopts these tactics, but just be aware of the tactics used by the right.